Good morning, Louise,
Morning, Rob.
and a happy new year to you, Louise, and to everybody who is watching this episode of God is Supernatural, or you're listening to us on UGN Jams. Happy New Year to you all. So, if you've been watching us for a long time, we are God is Supernatural, and our mission is to encourage people, Christians, to step into the power of God. 1 Corinthians 2:4, what does Paul tell us? My message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom, but on God's power. It's not persuasion, it is demonstration. Do you carry God's power? That's really what Paul is saying. He's saying you should, we should. And we're looking at 2026, guys. So, day one, 2026, ground zero. What are some of the things that you should be building into your life if you want to go into 2026 carrying God's power? So, we've seen a lot of that over 2025, haven't we, Louise?
Yeah, yeah, it has been a real blessing, hasn't it? In a different sort of way.
It's been an amazing blessing. There's been such a prophetic input into our house, our gathering this year, which has just taken us onto a different level, sustained us, given us wisdom. I think I could say that, being like wisdom and direction, huge amount of direction. And we're gonna just share some of what God has been building into us that will sustain where you're going and where we're going. We are praying we're going into revival, that this quiet revival doesn't become a slow revival, but becomes a very loud, noisy, rapid revival. But for that to happen, there is work that's got to be done, and we're going to be talking about that in a moment. But I just want to quickly reflect, Louise, on Kingdom First because I don't know about you, but it just says it has really seemed that in this, particularly in this new year, um, God's touch and hand has been amazing in that group.
Yeah, that there has been a real eagerness and openness just I guess what we're going to be talking about, just to be in his presence and respond to what he's showing individuals, and the transformation and change that we've seen has been massive, hasn't it?
Um, yeah, and the hand of God, just the hand of God on people. So, guys, I partly I mentioned that because we have a new Kingdom First starting in March. So we're midway through the current one, which will take us up to March. So if you would like to be involved in the next one, then do check us out on networkvineyard.church. Put a www dot in front of that, and you'll find us. Go to events, and why don't you register for Kingdom First Year One starting in March? We'd love to have you with us. So, but some of the things that God has been inputting into us and that we have experienced, because this isn't head knowledge. I mean, we're kind of explaining it now, but actually, this is something. These are things that we've experienced over this year. And number one, Louise, that it'd be great for us to talk about is presence before platform.
Mm,
So it's become abundantly clear for us over this year that God's presence is the strategy.
yeah.
Without his presence, I mean, we've got nothing, and we shouldn't pretend that without God we can do anything that is of spiritual substance because we can't. So actually, his presence is the strategy, and therefore we have to be presence led. It's got to be presence before platform, presence before publicity, presence before impact, because without his presence literally nothing happens. And I don't know about you, Louise, but I particularly noticed it in our times of worship
Yeah.
that I mean, you and I have both been in thousands of worship gatherings over the years, probably like a lot of our listeners and viewers. But when worship is presence led rather than song led, it's unbelievably different as an experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the manifest presence of the Holy Spirit is there often in a way that I've never sensed before in any other place. And for me, when that happens, I mean, there are songs. Obviously, you say it's not song led, but we do use songs. But the words of those songs just become so powerful and personal. It just makes you want to freely worship and adore in a way that you've never done that before, in quite, for me anyway, in quite an emotional way.
Yeah.
Um, just seeing what God has done in my own life personally. Um,
Yeah, you had a moment of that recently, didn't you? Do you want
yeah, yeah. So we were singing about our gratefulness towards God and him taking us from a pit of despair and lifting us out of that pit. And I just felt really personal to me and just came over me the gratefulness and the thankfulness. And, you know, he rescued me. It wasn't just a song, it was personal. And that worship just comes really from the heart then,
to?
doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Oh, it does. It does. Um, I mean, these things are quite hard to describe.
Yes.
Um, what is presence led mean? So we can give, it's like, you're feeling that elephant in the dark, and it's such a big object, you're feeling it around the leg, and you've got really no idea what the rest of it feels like, but you know what this feels like. So that's kind of what it's like. We know what these elements feel like that we've experienced, but we can't possibly describe the whole thing. But some of the things that we have experienced are, um, for me, talking for me, we all have these times where we, as you were just saying, we have this kind of sense of God within, don't we? There's these kind of inner movements that take place. But I've also realized that, um, in addition to that, there is this external sense of God in the room, which is, um, I don't know. I think that's quite new for me, but it feels like, because partly you notice it because there is this uplift of energy in the room
Mm,
that is independent of you and this thing that you're feeling. But partly it's also, for me, I just experience it. Feels like some amazingly clean, fresh spiritual air has suddenly come into the room, and nothing is being done from our energy and our effort, and yet worship is like unbelievably exuberant or free or expressive, and yet it's not depleting in any way because it's not manufactured. It's almost like, I don't know, there's I mean, this doesn't really express it, like there's a vacuum out there, and all this stuff comes out of you to fill the vacuum, and it's no, you haven't expelled it at all. But that doesn't, I mean, it's not a vacuum, because it's amazing filling of the presence of God, and it kind of like you're following it.
yeah,
Whereas often worship is led,
yeah,
it's chosen. We're going to move from here to there. There's this bridge, but spirit presence led worship doesn't feel like that. Feels like, oh, God's moved there into that. There's an emotion or a sound or a voice or a phrase, and And that's where the worship then heads to.
Mm, yeah. And there's been real moments of spontaneous joy, hasn't there, over the past few months from the whole of the congregation? Just spontaneous applause, just vocal joy that I've never experienced before as well.
Yeah. And you led us so into a real time of healing in worship just recently, which I think is also part of this, because his presence is there. Um, there was an amazing openness. Do you want to, because you were at the front, so you can describe what you were
Yeah.
seeing, can't you?
So I think we were singing a song about how God was right there in the room and he was moving. And I just felt like the Holy Spirit saying, do you really believe that?
Yeah.
Um, and it was about him healing and his power. So I just felt led just to go to the front and say, do we really believe he's here and he's moving and he's healing? And just encouraged anybody that needed healing to put their hand up. And as I did that, I looked out, and lots of people had their hands up. There was one particular lady who had her hand up, and she was just sobbing, like I don't know, was talking just to her. Anyway, I encouraged people just to gather around the people that had their hands up and pray for the specific healing. And God was gracious, and healing took place. I think you were praying for one lady, weren't you, Rob,
I
who
was, yeah.
was it shoulder
It,
problems?
yeah, it was pain in her shoulder. Um, and at one point I commanded just a relaxation to come in, and her whole body just at that point just completely relaxed. I mean,
Yeah,
she wasn't, I don't think she was aware that it was all tensed up, and it didn't look tensed up to me, but suddenly
yeah,
whole frame just relaxed and slumped.
yeah. There was another lady. So we went on and had a time of testimony after this, and she gave testimony to improvement in her neck. So she'd arrived at church in great pain. She couldn't move her neck left or right and up and down. After prayer, she was able to move her neck up and down, which is partial healing. And she did go on.
We
She was,
go.
yeah, she was in church this week, and she was fully better. And
Yeah.
then another guy had prayer for his knee, and he received healing for that as well. The lady who I had looked up and seen was in tears. She had received prayer, but actually, she said she was really distracted during receiving prayer because her husband was next to her, and she could actually hear him praying for the guy with the bad knee. And she said she'd never heard him pray before. And so she was listening to that and was just so thankful for God, to God, that her husband was stepping out in that, and the
And
presence.
and that
Sorry,
guy was healed, wasn't he?
yeah, he's the guy
Well,
with the knee. Yeah.
yeah.
So just in that moment of worship, unexpectedly, all of this was happening.
So guys, principle number one, presence before platform. I mean, God's presence is the strategy. If you don't have his presence, then nothing that is of spiritual moment is going to happen. Um, Number two, as we look forward to 2026, depth before scale. I mean, if you're a guy, you're wanting to see often impact and change all around you, and you just want to get on with it. Um, can't talk for you, the ladies, Louise, but I can talk for many men. Um, and what the Lord is saying is the work is first of all within you. If there are not deep foundations, um, if you're not on a journey where there is an actual engagement with God at deep levels of communication, then then there isn't the depth for there to be the scale and the height. Um, I don't know from a woman's perspective, Louise, how that might work, but I think that's definitely for people who like to see things done quickly. We just want to do it too quickly.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think where we're talking about that internal transformation that we all need to receive first, don't we, before that the external impact happens. I can testify to that in lots of different ways, but sometimes we just, for me, just doing it in human strength, just trying to get it done is, and it's fruitless, I think.
Mm. Um, and it really is, guys. I mean, how did you explain it? It is, I mean, it's a work that goes on because God does it and you can't plan it. Um, but you know that you're going somewhere because the depths of your relationship are growing. It's no longer a surface relationship. It's no longer in your head. It's no longer knowledge based, primarily where you're just trying to learn about the Bible or about God, but it is a knowing God. So um, you've plunged into relationship at levels that maybe you've not experienced before. Well, actually, you really haven't experienced before. You're not growing if you're not going into levels down into levels that you haven't experienced before. So um, if that's not been a direction that 2025 or your previous Christian life has been in, going in, it needs to. You need to not know about God. You need to know God. You need to know Him deeply. You need to know Him well. So that's number two. There's got to be depth before scale. Um, just because there's time, we're under time pressures, Louise, we're going to jump to formation before fruitfulness. Formation before fruitfulness. What do we mean by that? Well, let's leap to a concrete example. So Evan Roberts and the Welsh Revival. So the Welsh Revival lasted about a year, 1904 to 1905. Evan Roberts was the principal uh, flame carrier for that. But after about a year, he was exhausted. Um, the intensity of what had happened, the sudden fame, the pressures of trying to carry this meant that he had to withdraw. And he never returned back to public ministry. So here we have a revival that was amazing 100,000 conversions in like 18 months, which is astonishing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, that is astonishing. And, but over so rapidly. So, what are we talking about? Formation before fruitfulness. Something's got to happen within us that if it doesn't happen, the work of God quickly ends or quickly finishes. Sometimes that's moral failure because we don't have the character to carry uh, what what is now what God's put within us. We don't have the character to carry that. So that's a lot of where moral failures come from. Evan Roberts, there was no moral failure, so we're not talking about that. But there are the other elements of formation before fruitfulness are knowing who you are, knowing your lane, knowing what God has created you for. And I kind of think that there were some elements of that that were applicable to Evan Roberts because he was um, he carried a fire. I mean, and without the fire, there is nothing. I mean, presence is the strategy.
Mm,
But he wasn't able to carry the structure and spiritual formation where God uh, reveals himself to you and reveals you to you, helps you to know actually what I'm made for, what do I carry, and I'm good with that.
mm,
Um, and when I'm good with that, I can allow other people to come in and carry what they bring, and it builds a whole that means something can be sustained that is beyond my gifting because I don't carry all the giftings.
mm.
Um, he carried the ignition, but not the governance. And I think there's something really quite important about that. I don't know what your views on that are, Louise.
Yeah, I think that that's really important. You know, we don't all have all of the gifts, do we? So yeah, um, we do need to know how to delegate, don't we? Um,
We need to know what's not our lane,
yeah.
so we don't stray into that because that will kill us.
Yes.
If you carry the fire, but you don't really carry the organizational structure and what's required, because those are very different gifts, and you try to do that, that is a recipe for burnout.
Yeah.
You will die. But if you try and build a revival with gifts of structure and governance, but you don't carry the fire, that's just a pointless exercise because it's a you can't drive it forward because those aren't the gifts that do that. So formation and allowing the fullness of that formation to also take place. Because whatever your gifts are, there is a fullness of them, and they are spiritual. Um, so certainly practicing doing them is part of the formation, but that kind of the hiddenness of preparation is not delay, but it is wisdom because it allows something fully formed to take place. Zechariah 4:10, do not despise the day of small beginnings, guys. So 2026, you may think, oh, I'm just starting in such a small place. Maybe, maybe. But if you go deep into God so that it is a deep place, then you will find that this is wisdom because God is preparing you for expansion. He's preparing you for growth. But hidden things, spiritual things, have to take place before you can see the fruit and the spread of the fire and the escalation. So we all want revival and we all want it now. We want it to be massive.
Yeah.
But there are going to be people who have to carry it. And if they are not fully formed and been through the fire, um, we could then have something that is very short-lived, and none of us want that, do
Definitely not. No more quiet revival.
we?
No more slow revival.
No more short revival.
Yeah,
So, guys, we want to bless you as you pursue God and seek God. It all comes from Him. May 2026 be the best year yet. May it be God's year for us all. God bless you and look forward to seeing you next time.